Hey folks, VermiBag tutorials here. Today I'd like to do a quick video and show you how I separate my castings when I need to. This Lowe's mortar tray is full of castings that I harvested from the center VermiBag about 2.5 weeks ago now. Now when I finished harvesting it, I placed a small container with some food scraps and some bedding in it, and that's been sitting on top of that now for the last 2.5 weeks. So over this period, a lot of the cocoons that are in the castings hatched, and any of the worms that I missed that were down deep when I did this harvest, a lot of those have migrated up into this container now. Now you're never going to get all of the worms out of there, but at least this way you're going to get a fair percentage of the cocoons that hatched. I'll pull it up and show you a little bit closer, but you'll see how many worms are inside this container now. And then I'll show you how I do the sifting, separate the castings, run it through a screen. So once I harvest the castings, I place them, like I said, in these Lowe's mortar trays. If you don't have any of them, I'd suggest getting one. I use the mortar tray for almost everything. I use it for harvesting. I use it to cut my vegetables up. I use it for separating castings. They're really durable, they're useful, and they're pretty cheap. I'm sure there's other things you can use, but these work really well. So now I have my mortar tray. It's full of castings. There's probably about close to 5 gallons in here, I would imagine. Like I said, it's been sitting for 2.5 weeks, so they've had quite a bit of time to migrate into this container that I have here. I've cut the bottom out of this container and placed a screen on it, similar to this one. This is the one I use for sifting. So the worms are able to move in and out of the bottom of this. It's probably about an 1/8 inch. It's not, it's the triangular type screen, but maybe a smidgen over 1/8 inch. It's way smaller than 1/4 inch though. So the worms are able to go in and out of this as they want, but the whole idea is to try and get as many worms into this area, entice them in here with some food, of course give them some time, and then I can pull them out and I don't have to deal with nearly as many worms when I'm sifting the castings. Now, sifting castings is a personal preference. You can easily take this compost the way it is right now. It's really nice, and put it directly into your garden with your plants and stuff. But a lot of people, including myself sometimes, I like to sift it just slightly because it'll get the larger seeds out of here. There's a lot of seeds from cantaloupe and squash and different things like that. And if you run it through a small screen, you'll get a good percentage of those out. Patience is required on this. You can't rush this particular process because cocoons take about 3 weeks on the average to hatch. So you should be leaving this in here for at least somewhere around that 3-week period to allow worms in here to hatch and to migrate over. It'd probably be better to leave these things for about 4 weeks. That way, after the worms hatch, they're very, very small. They don't migrate a long ways initially. So that'd give them another week to grow a little bit and to get over here to where the food is. I'm going to go ahead and pull this container out, zoom in on it a little bit, and we'll take a look at it and just see how many worms we're able to migrate from the castings into the container over a 2.5 week period. So let's take a look and see how many worms I have in this container. You can see from there, there's a lot of worms in there. Close I can get, if you can see them. See another area there with lots of worms there. We're going to go ahead and sift some of these castings now, and any worms I find there that fall through into the castings and the chunks of compost, I'm going to throw them back into the bin here. Now to do my sifting, I use these small plastic containers that I've cut out, and I put a small screen in the bottom of them. And what's nice about these is they have a groove around them, and they fit inside these larger plastic containers. And so I'm able to slide them back and forth. I saw somebody on YouTube that made a wooden one that's the same premise. You can slide it back and forth, and it works really well. So it was nice to find something like this that worked like that. I'm sure if you look around down at Lowe's or Home Depot, you'll find something similar to this that are stackable, and you can take a small one and slide it back and forth. Okay, so now I'm going to go through these castings and run them through this screen, try and get a good percentage of the larger chunks and seeds and possibly some worms out of it. Now, anything I have left in my screen, I'm going to go ahead and place, like I said, into the bait tray that I had all the worms go up into, and that'll go back into one of the bins either as a starter or to just supplement another bin. Now, it's best to first kind of go through your castings here and just break up any clumps that you have. Areas that are kind of high in moisture will be kind of sticking together. So if you go through here, run your fingers through it, just break it up slightly before you put it into the sifter. And you'll see the occasional worm here and there, and if you want, you can grab it at that time and just throw it into the bait container that you've been using to attract the worms in here. So I start with a good handful, throw it into the sifter. It won't take that long to go through the 5 gallons here. I go ahead and once I've sifted it a little while, kind of push down on some of the areas and just kind of try and break up the smaller clumps. That's about as far as I'll go, and you'll see there's, you know, clumps in there, and I see an occasional worm here and there. I'm going to take this and just dump this right back into the bin that I have the bait stuff in. You can see here, there's a lot of seeds that aren't falling through the sieve, and that's exactly what you want. And you're still going to get a fair amount of worms. There's a couple, 2 or 3 of them right there that are going to stay up here. So you dump these items back into your bait bin and put them back in your compost and run them through another cycle. There'll be some cocoons in here, possibly a few. You're going to get a lot of cocoons in the finish. Anything that hasn't hatched is going to end up in here. Another item, if your screen starts getting clogged up, if it's pretty wet, you're going to get areas that are clogged. Best thing to do is just grab a small brush, and you can just take that brush and run it along your screen, and it'll open everything up and allow the compost to fall through again. So folks, this is the final product after running it through the screen. You can tell it's a really, really nice material. There is an occasional worm here and there I can see. You definitely don't get them all. But this material is so nice. It's still very moist, soft, fluffy. This is the finished. I ended up with 1.5 of these containers. So that's really close to about 5 gallons of material. This is the material that I rejected, basically, stuff that wasn't composted well enough, clumps. And if you look at that, there's a fair amount of worms in there if you look through there. So I'll take this material along with the bait section, throw it in another bin, and let it compost through the whole cycle again. So that's it. This works really well to separate the castings, try and get a majority of the worms out of it. You end up with a really nice finished product with very few seeds in it. There's still an occasional seed, chunks of eggshell and miscellaneous items, but it's a really nice finished material. So, from VermiBag Tutorials, until next time, ciao.